Hello and welcome back to the world of the spirit consciousness. This is a continuation of the book study session, the astral body and other astral phenomena. We are now in the 18th module, which is the second last module of this particular book study session. And in this module, we are discussing clairvoyance in space and time. So, again, split into two parts, clairvoyance in space and clairvoyance in time. Diving into clairvoyance in space, there are five techniques by which one can view occurrences which are far away. Creation of an energy tube, projecting a thought form, traveling in the astral body, which has been discussed in detail in the earlier modules, traveling in the mental body, and finding a person on various planes. So, creation of an energy tube. So, particle to particle transmission of energy, working on the entire line simultaneously, forming energy tubes unconsciously, process to form the energy tube, enabling props to ease the process and limitations of this method. So the creation of an energy tube is, again, there are five types to it, and we will see each of these five in the coming slides. So the first technique, the particle to particle transmission of energy, is a little similar to the magnetization of a bar of steel and uses astral currents. It has a polarization between the observer and the image he or she wants to observe. The polarization occurs by an effort of will and several parallel lines of astral atoms running from the observer to the image he wishes to perceive. All the atoms are firmly parallel to each other's axis, forming a type of tube through which a clairvoyant can see. This line may be disrupted or may be dismantled altogether if an astral current strong enough tends to cross its path, but this usually doesn't happen. This line is created either by transmission of energy from particle to particle, or another method utilizes a force from a higher plane which will work on the entire line at the same time. This second method suggests to be a much advanced development. This includes knowledge and power to use the forces of a higher level to a great extent. A person who utilizes this method to create a line wouldn't need it for his or her own use, because they'd be able to see a much clearer and a whole picture with the help of higher powers. Energy tube, forming energy tubes unconsciously. So even unconsciously or unintentionally, such a current or a tube can be formed. It is usually a result of powerful thought or emotion cast from one or the other end. Either the one who perceives sends the current, or the one who is perceived does. If two people share powerful mutual affection, it is possible that a somewhat constant stream of mutual thought flows between them. A sudden need or terrible distress on either of them can create a polarizing power in this stream for the time being. This power is the required power to make the astral telescope. By this method, one gets a view similar to that from a telescope. Humans appear tiny, for instance, but still crystal clear. Sometimes one can hear or see by this method, but it doesn't happen often. So the formation process of the energy tube, majority of people form a tube almost by luck and view whatever happens at the other end. Some decide what they wish to view by the effort of will, pointing the telescope where they wish. Few psychics can utilize the tube method only under the influence of mesmerism. Such psychics are of two types: psychics who can create the tube on their own, and psychics who can view from the telescope created by the mesmerizer. Very rarely, only at times, the tube also aids magnification. In such a situation, it is possible that a new faculty is beginning to appear. So, enabling props to ease the process of an energy tube, clairvoyance of this kind is made easier with the use of a physical object as a beginning point to help focus the willpower. For instance, a crystal ball, which is most commonly used, is impactful as a foci because the elemental essence is arranged in a specific way in it. Also, it contains in itself qualities which aid psychic power. So a mirror may be used, cup may be used, or pool of ink may be used as is used in India and Egypt. A drop of blood, which is like Maoris of New Zealand do that, or water in a glass bowl in Fez. A bowl of water, which is used by Red Indians, a pond by, which is a Roman and African way of doing it, and any polished surface or taking powdered chalk charcoal in a saucer to obtain a jet black process surface. This has obvious limitations. The astral telescope can view the scene from only one direction, and its field of view is specific and restricted. Actually, astral sight through such a tube would give the same restricted view one would get while viewing from a physical sight in a similar situation. So the other way is by projecting a thought form. So in this method, one projects one's own mental image around which astral matter is gathered. This link with the image is retained. This link makes it possible to receive imprints. Hence, this form acts as a type of outpost of the psychic's consciousness. The impressions formed this way are transferred to the thinker via sympathetic vibration. So when executed perfectly, the psychic can view in almost the same way they would if they had been standing in place of the thought form. One can also change their point of view if they want. Compared to the previous kind of clairvoyance, clairaudience is not often linked with this kind. When the focus on the thought is disturbed, the entire vision disappears. A new thought form needs to be created before the process can continue. This kind of clairvoyance is much rarer than the previous type because of the level of mental control needed, the intricate nature of the forces utilized, and it is quite tiresome unless practiced at a much shorter distance. So the third technique in this is traveling in the astral body, which has already been discussed in earlier modules. So we will not discuss that again. Now we will look at traveling in the mental body. So in this situation, the astral body remains with the physical body. If one wants to project themselves on the astral plane, briefly, an astral body or Mayavi Roop is created. Also, it is possible to get information about distinct occurrences by invoking or evoking an astral entity like a nature spirit and convincing or forcing them to conduct an examination. But this is magic and not clairvoyance. Now, about finding a person on various planes, there are two parts we have to look at it: finding a person on the astral plane or finding a person on other planes. So, about finding a person on the astral plane, so to find someone on the astral plane, it is important to have a good understanding and communication with them, and even the slightest clue is enough. For example, a photo, a letter written by the person, or an object which was owned by the person. The individual will then send out the person's tone, and if the person is present on the astral plane, an immediate reply will be received. This tone is the average tone which arises from the various vibrations which are constant in his or her astral body. Now, but finding a person on other planes, a tone similar to the average arises from the person's mental and other bodies as well. Together, all these form the person's chord. This is better known as the mystic chord. Momentarily, the trained psychic adapts his or her own bodies to exactly match the tone of the person being pursued. She or he then sends a sound by an effort of will. Wherever in the three planes the person may be, they will immediately respond to it. This response is instantly visible to the psychic who can then form a magnetic line of connection with the person. So with that, we've finished clairvoyance in space. Now we will look at clairvoyance in time. So one form of clairvoyance empowers the psychic to view occurrences that have taken place in the past. There are several levels to this power. These can range from a trained person who can consult the Akashic records for himself or herself at will, or to the individual who receives only occasional flashes. A normal psychometer requires a physical object to be connected to the scene in the past that one wants to see, or they may use a crystal or any other object as the focus. The Akashic records symbolize a divine memory, as mentioned in short in the module on miscellaneous astral phenomena. So the records are visible on the astral plane. However, these are visible as a reflection of the reflection from a much higher world. On the astral plane, they appear extremely inaccurate, quite scattered, and very misrepresented. So this reflection has been compared to the reflection on the surface of water which has been rippled by wind. The Akashic records can be read completely and with total accuracy on the mental plane. This, however, requires powers concerned with the mental plane. So that is the end of the module on clairvoyance in space and time. The next module is invisible helpers. Stay tuned.